Video 5, all moms know kids have bad days too, but when grumpy, irritable, unhappy behavior lingers, you may worry it might be more than just a bad mood. So today we're asking an expert this hot button question: can a child be depressed? Joining me is Dr. Adam Schwebach, a child psychologist. It's always great to have you.
Thanks, Brooke.
I have to admit, that question, just saying it, makes me feel a little unsettled, right? We live in this day and time where some might feel things are overdiagnosed, right, or overemphasized. So if we're looking at an average child, Adam, you know, setting aside any trauma or extreme life stress, can a child really receive that label?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that often we overlook, not just as parents, but sometimes we overlook it as professionals as well. And depression is a real thing. I mean, even in adults, depression can affect 10 to 20% of the population, and in young children, it can affect anywhere from 5 to 7% of that population as well.
5 to 7%.
Yeah, so it's definitely, the depression in the general population is the most common mental health disorder that any person experiences, whether you're a child, adolescent, or adult.
And I've heard that statistic. I knew that. Talk to us, though, from a child's perspective. What's causing this? What's triggering this?
So in some cases, we really think depression is a genetic link. So we do think that some people and some children are genetically predisposed to having depression. There are other factors, environmental stressors and issues at school or family stressors. Those things can contribute to it. But kids who we feel have really true clinical depression, there's often a genetic link to that.
How young?
We can see it anywhere as young as 5, 6, and 7, generally, when kids start to be able to communicate more what they're feeling, what they're thinking. So around 8, 9, or 10 is where we can really identify it pretty clearly.
Well, you mentioned the, underdiagnosed issue. Moms out there, when they see a grumpy kid or a moody kid, they're not thinking depression. So what should a parent be looking for? Sure.
I think some of the quick signs that parents will look for is if they have an abrupt change in their behavior.
Okay.
So things have been going pretty well, but all of a sudden things are different. So a real abrupt change is definitely a concern. Obviously, we get really worried if children are starting to make comments about not wanting to live, I want to die, I wish I was dead, I hate my life. Those are comments that we really need to pay close attention to. Obviously, if they're trying to self-harm or attempting self-harm, we really need to not downplay that. And then, of course, if they start to be less interested in things than they normally were interested in, so they kind of develop this I don't care attitude, I don't really care, I'm not interested in things, that's definitely something we need to talk about.
Does it show up, though, differently in different kids? I mean, you have to know your child, right, in order to see if that behavior might fit into their personality.
Yeah, and one of the things in adults, depression often exhibits with sadness, crying a lot of the time. In children, we actually see anger, irritability, and lots of aggression. So kids will often get really angry. These are kids that are punching holes in the wall. They're having lots of disruptive behavioral issues. So that's a key symptom or a key sign that parents can look for. You
talked about the genetic factor. Do you see this run in families then?
Absolutely. I think if families know that there's a genetic family history, we need to talk about that. We all know mental health kind of has this, stereotype that we're all a little bit afraid of, but we need to make sure that we're aware if there's a family history of these types of challenges.
Do you find it something that, I hate to use the word resolve because I know this is a deep-seated issue, but do you find it something you can deal with at a young age, or does it then tend to pop up later in life, say teenage years or early adulthood?
Yeah, depression can be cyclical, so you can go through what we call depressive episodes where it lasts for months and then it goes away and then it might come back later on. But we want to help people learn how to manage it, control it, identify it, and make sure that they can learn how to cope with those things.
You listed the symptoms. If any of those symptoms fit the behavior of your child, obviously consulting a professional is the first step.
Sure. Yeah, I think we can always talk to your primary care doctor. Obviously, seeking help from mental health professionals is going to be critical. But really, more importantly, we want to encourage parents, if you're concerned, get help, talk to your doctors about it, and let's get a game plan in place.
Don't dismiss it, you say. And then how can we keep that open communication with our children, right, to talk about it freely?
Yeah, it always comes down to the relationship. We want to make sure we're fostering a very healthy relationship with our children. And if our children are making comments, we really want to ask them questions like, what's happening in your life? Tell me what you're frustrated about. What are you experiencing that's making you feel this way? We don't want to just dismiss it and downplay it and say, oh, you're fine, don't worry about it. We really want to try to better understand what's happening in their life that might be contributing to these problems.
If parents need help, have questions, how can they get in touch with you?
They can always find us on our website. It's npcu.net, and they can always take a look at that if they need some more help.
Okay, Adam, always helpful.